in studio with us, I think the first time in 8 years. I've met him many times in person. We have Steve Shank here, who's kind of a globetrotter. He travels all over. He just came here to talk to me. Kind of old-fashioned. I like that. I'm like, look, you don't need to come here to talk to me. And he, no, I want to come there and talk to you. So he's here at the InfoWars Command Center. We've got him for the rest of the hour. And it's such a big story. We're going to have him on the nightly news as well, because he had all these documents and articles, and what he was telling me. I mean, this is a guy who's got big, giant factories, folks. I mean, you know, everybody copies him. He's got other companies with spies trying to find out what he's doing. He's having to buy food out a year or two ahead just so he can give you good food at the lowest price when other folks are selling you things that the cardboard has more nutrition, literally. See, I'm already running on here. We're not talking about eFoodsDirect.com. He does not want to talk about that. He came here to talk about the news, and boy, there is a big, giant stack of it. But interjecting into that, DHS warns Muslim Brotherhood and Iran forming new terror axis. But wait a minute, our government put al-Qaeda into Libya and Syria. Unreal. Obama invites Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood president to meet next week, refuses to meet Netanyahu. They've got Marines landing, ships arriving. There's basically a new invasion of Libya to kick out the people they used to take over. Bedlam in Syria. So that's a side issue. Here's what he brought. Reuters. World food prices jumped 10% in July. World Bank. Boom. That's hyperinflation, folks, not just the droughts. Food stamp use climbs to record 46.7 mil, but you add in the rest is over 50 mil. Bloomberg. Hot, long summer since food prices soaring. The ethanol issue. Record numbers entering poverty. I mean, this is just the beginning. Steve Shank, we're going to break here in about 3 minutes. We're going to come back with us. We got so much to talk about here today. What is your message in 3 minutes of what's coming up? I mean, why did you want to address people here today?
Very simply, Alex, we've got a situation where food is becoming very literally the road to Rome. In other words, everything leads to food. When they've got trouble in the Middle East, when we've got oil prices going up, when we've got embargo possibilities, all the oil issues, we've got ethanol. When people are looking at their gas pumps and seeing 10% ethanol, that's your food going into the gas tank. That's your food going into the gas tank, because right now we lost 70% of our corn crop.
And the animal feed. Pig farmers are just throwing in the towel. Beef farmers.
Yeah, and some of them are feeding their livestock candy because they can't afford the corn.
I saw that. The corn candy's cheaper than corn. Guys, show that article.
Yeah, and so what we've got is a situation where food is becoming the currency of the present. It used to be that food was the way that you measured someone's wealth. Now we're struggling to pay for the gas in the gas tank, primarily because the ethanol that was touted as being a means by which we could keep the gas prices down. Corn is so expensive to make the ethanol out of that it's actually boosting the price of petroleum up. So we've got just absolutely a world gone insane. And the country that was in 1959 capable of producing enough food to feed the entire planet 5 times over is now importing 40% of its food. And our American population, 50% of the population of this country is needing subsidization for their food budget.
It's not just the 50 mil or close to it on food stamps, and you got all the Social Security, all of it. If the dollar goes belly up, my gosh, it's going to be invasion of the zombies. And the government's running ads saying, get prepared, zombies are going to attack, as a metaphor of the giant hordes of people. I mean, this is insane when the Homeland Security is running zombie apocalypse TV ads.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely insane.
What is going on? Steve Shank, this is insane. We're going to break it all down on the other side. I wish it wasn't unfolding, coming true, but it is. Reality is more sensational than any movie you can imagine. We've got a bullet list a mile long. We're going to tackle on the other side, and I'm going to plug it. He can't stop me. eFoodsDirect.com, the place to get your storable foods. Alex Jones here with a very important announcement for truth seekers. We've carried a lot of amazing films and books over the years on the online video bookstore at Infowars.com. And out of all the titles we've carried, one stands out because it is just so chillingly convincing. And that's Dreams from My Real Father by Joel Gilbert, available at Infowars.com. This film exposes the fraud that Obama is like nothing I've seen. If you want to know who Obama's real daddy is, this is the film for you. Don't forget, your purchase supports our broadcast and our growing media network. You'll also find at InfoWarsShop.com, None Dare Call a Conspiracy by Gary Allen, the book that woke me up. We're also carrying Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21 by Rosa Corey. This book is coffin nails to the globalist takeover. The Greater Good, the most professional and up-to-date film I've ever seen exposing the scourge that is vaccines. These titles and a lot more are all available at InfoWarsShop.com. Here's what's breaking at InfoWars.com. I knew that a judge ruled that they can just take your guns if they feel like it now and just say it's an arsenal or say you're mentally ill. But I was just reading an article during the break and following the links. It's at InfoWars.com. New attack on Second Amendment says substance abusers cannot own firearms. So now, if they take your blood at one of these checkpoints and find THC in it, they're not just going to take your kids. They're going to take your guns, and they're calling it a mental disorder to be pro-gun. I'm not kidding. So we're entering the Soviet Union. This stuff is moving so quick. But let's see them try to implement it. The IRS over health care. They say they don't run health care now. They're just issuing the rulings and saying what you've got to do. Also, we've got establishment capitalizes on embassy attack as election approaches. And I'm not defending Mitt Romney, but when he said Obama's been helping the Muslim Brotherhood and all these groups, and whenever Romney said, look at how your people you put in Libya killed the embassy head, the ambassador, that was true. And John McCain, who helped get all this war launched, he's out attacking Mitt Romney, and the media's like, even a Republican's attacking him. Well, if John McCain's a conservative or a libertarian, I'll eat my hat. I mean, this is anti-gun, pro-open borders. And again, I'm not siding Obama, Romney. They're both globalists. But let me tell you, this is a fake attack on Romney here. Because he should own it. Romney should own it and say, you helped put al-Qaeda in Libya and Syria. But see, he doesn't want to do that because it's part of the larger plan. So the establishment's like, hey, don't use that, Romney, because they're all involved in it. And that's why politicians will never use real issues. Now, Steve Shank's here of eFoodsDirect.com, the J. Michael Stevenson group, and they are the name. I mean, I've bought a bunch of storable food over the years. They've got the best prices because they buy in bulk. They cut out the middlemen. They don't do all the giant advertising. There's some other groups out there that you hear on some of the big shows that I got to tell you, folks, is an absolute travesty. It's like some of these gold companies that have a 100% markup and stuff. I mean, it's just amazing what goes on. And again, he doesn't want to talk about that. I'm just telling you, this guy is an authority. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to food prices and the economy, because he's there buying the food a year out or more. Doesn't mean he buys food and sits there for a year. He's future contracts on crops that haven't even grown yet. So he's a big insider, basically telling all. We're going to have an in-depth interview today on the Nightly News that will air soon on the radio. But Steve, while you're here live, you've got the floor. Take it away. You want to get into food stamps first and how we hear them being advertised. Doesn't matter if you've got a job or a car, come get them. What's that about?
Well, it's absolutely absurd. What's happening is, I hesitate to say this, but on this program I can't think I can. Do you want to buy a presidency? Because here's a very simple concept. If you feed them, you lead them. And what we've got right now in this country is 50% of the population needs some sort of a subsidy for their food because they can't afford it. Millions of people are in a situation where they're getting food stamps already. But in addition to the food stamps, you've got a whole lot of folks that are getting support from their churches, getting support from other sub-organizations that are assisting. And so half the population really needs help buying food because the food prices are so high. But then at the same time, we've got a drought that's knocked out about 70% of the corn crop. Well, now, what does that mean? All of these dots connect up together, Alex, and all roads lead to food. Very simply, when we lose the corn crop, we've had a certain percentage of that corn crop that's been mandated to be put into ethanol. In other words, you're pouring the food into the gas tank. Now, the whole idea behind ethanol was the fact that it was supposed to save money on petroleum. Okay? When ethanol when actually corn, as a result of the ethanol, ethanol went to its all-time high. It actually started increasing the cost of the gasoline that the ethanol was put into. Now, you put together the other insanity of this, that it takes about 1.5 gallons of petroleum energy to make 1 gallon of ethanol from corn, plus tremendous amounts of water, and corn is being subsidized for ethanol by the government. Now, anytime you have the government putting money into a project,
drives the price up like healthcare.
Absolutely. So what we've got is the farmers that are raising ethanol corn are being subsidized by the government. What about the farmers that are raising the corn that feeds our livestock and is people food?
Yeah, because a lot of people say, I don't even like corn. Why do I care? Folks, it's the base of the food chain for animal feed, for fillers and products. Corn, in some families, is half the vegetable protein and sugars they're getting. I mean, it's in everything.
70% of the food that you get in the grocery store has corn connected to it somehow. But the other interesting thing is the chain effect. What's happening is that the ranchers that are growing the beef, the farmers that have the dairy herds and all the poultry and all this kind of stuff, they can't get the feed that they need. In fact, it's gotten to the point where corn is so expensive that some of the farmers are actually feeding their livestock candy.
Wow.
Because the candy has corn products in it, and they can get some of the nutrition into the livestock.
Now, you brought up the foreigners. They admit the big boom is farms being bought up. The banks won't loan the money. So tell me what you told me yesterday.
Well, we had the bailout, right? That's supposed to solve a lot of problems. Well, the Congress looked at about $77 billion in bailout money. But some of the people that have actually looked at all of the subsidiary relationships that the government committed itself to has it over $12 trillion that has actually been committed. Now, what you've got is the government bailout created a situation where the banks got into good order, but immediately after that, you had a lot of the grocery store chains complaining because they couldn't get government loans to actually buy the foods to put on their shelves to sell the people. Then right behind that, the farmers stopped getting loans for planting the crops and harvesting the crops and doing whatever they needed to for the fuel and everything that they needed. And a lot of that was based on requirements that the farmers have enough water to fill a crop through because the bank didn't.
And again, none of this is an accident. They're paying to move our factories overseas. They know full well what they're doing. It's all the post-industrial world. Agenda 21, as you said yesterday, the bottom line is shut down the small family farms, which they're doing. It's a consolidation, and take the country that in the 50s they said could feed the whole world. Now, as you said, we import 40% of our food. But in the third world, it causes riots where they spend more than half their money on food. Here, it impoverishes us. There, it causes people to starve to death. And then you understand why they pulled the trigger on the ethanol chain reaction. This is eugenics.
Well, the interesting thing is that it all connects up. All these dots line up in a row. If you've got corn subsidized for ethanol, and the farmers that are raising our food have to pay higher prices for the corn to feed the cattle, and now we've eliminated the corn as a result of the drought. Now, it's not just here in the United States we've got a drought. We've got a drought worldwide. We're in the 7th year of a worldwide famine. China lost 60% of its wheat crop last year.
The Russians did.
Oh, yeah.
Something's weird. Maybe I hope there's not something to this 2012. No, we're all going to be here next year.
Don't even start me on that. The alignment of the planets and all this kind of stuff and what is happening to the weather patterns and things. There's some real stuff there. But let's get back to what's happening here with all of the commodities buying that's going on. You see, it used to be illegal for anybody to invest in commodities, foodstuffs, corn and wheat and this type of thing, unless they were actually in the business. But that got opened up.
Yeah, only farmers could do it to hedge their bet.
And people that were in the process of processing the food. In other words, the bakeries and that type of thing, people that were in the business and could take delivery, they couldn't just invest in it and just buy and sell. But you see,
they couldn't speculate.
No, you've heard about the trade deficit. We've got a trade deficit situation, right? They talk about how the United States is is passing all of its money overseas, mostly to China, by the way. China has more of our money than we do, but the fact is that the United Nations came out just a couple months ago and was lauding the fact that we are now doing something about our trade deficit. What are we doing? We're selling our food. You see, the United States is one of the few countries that does not restrict, when it doesn't have enough food to sell its own, to provide for its own people. It does not restrict exports on food. And so that means commodities buyers can go in and buy up our food. China can come in, India can come in, Australia can come in, all these countries.
And they're not just buying the food, as you were telling me last night, and I went and looked it up. They're buying up the farms.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, some of the people that promoted the most activity with regard to investing in gold are now saying, they started saying it about a year ago, Alex, that what you want to do is you want to start divesting of your gold and start investing in farm and farmland and agriculture.
Well, yeah, that's what all the bigwigs are saying. Faber, Jim Rogers, all of them are saying. Soros. Soros is also going into gold at the same time, but you're right. They're rushing into the real commodities and the holding things physically. Now, we've got all these other data points you gave me here that we go over. How does it affect things to have the Middle East going up in flames? I mean, how does it affect things to have the Russians threatening to, counterstrike with nukes? I mean, the whole world is really crazy right now. It's true. So give us you were here a year ago on the phone. You haven't probably been on in 6-7 months. You were saying watch food prices go up 10, 20, 30%. It's now done that 30%. It's now gone up 10% just in July. We're talking about 10% now by the end of this month. On top of that, that's like 40% in the last year. What's going on? And where is all this going to go? What's this going to cause in the third world where they're going to die if they don't get their food?
Well, what's going to happen very simply is that in the third world countries, they are already in bad shape, but they depend on imports from other countries. Obviously, they're not growing their own. So what you have is a situation where if we cut back on our exports, if some of the countries that have food cut back on their exports, they have a problem. But you've also got rioting and that type of thing. When we deal with the war, you mentioned the war. What we had just a few months ago was that the Arabs and the oil-producing countries, when they get ticked off at us, they threaten to shut back on the oil. Well, if you look at the last 10 years of prices, of oil prices and food prices, the graphs go just right neck and neck. They're just exactly identical. They're actually overlays.
Well, because that feeds in the fuel to ship the food.
There you
process
go.
It, everything.
So you've got this big circle. We're raising Cain over there with the oil producing countries. We won't develop our own oil production ourselves, which is another issue that I'm sure that you're pretty well aware of.
They use to control us.
Yep. And so basically what's happening is worldwide, when we go into these countries, every country out there, the third world countries particularly, have a seed base of heritage seeds. These are the seeds that the pioneers had. They could plant that seed and then they'd just take that same seed and plant it the next year and the next year.
Heirloom seeds.
Heirloom seeds, yeah. They had, what's happened is each one of these countries have their own heirloom seed base, but that's being destroyed. Interesting. So even the third world countries have to buy their seed each year in order to plant and have crops.
Well, yeah, now the GMO's taken over.
There you go.
You see the total plan.
Yeah, well, food basically is a control mechanism. You see, food has always been a currency. But what we've got right now...
Well, the UN said in '96 in Beijing, they said, we will use food as a weapon. Henry Kissinger, State Department Memorandum 200. This is the plan.
Right? And when these foreign countries come in, you see, as a result of the bailout, they stop giving loans to farmers. Now, we're jumping around here a little bit, but when they stop doing that, then these foreign countries come in and they say to the farmer, okay, if you're going to stay in business, you've got to be able to grow crops. So we'll give you the money and we'll pay you a profit, but the food goes out of the country to wherever they are. China is literally farming the planet.
They're farming Africa.
Yeah.
They're now getting 98% of rare earth minerals out of the ground. Our elites have just given control of everything to them strategically. They've made a behind-the-scenes deal with them to help bring in the New World Order. Now, I mean, you sat me down yesterday. It was like I was Howard Beale in there in the office and network, getting the speech. But it was all true because I know this info. But the way you put it, explain why food is so important. Because I know this. I mean, you know me. I've got 2 garages jammed full of it with air conditioners on it.
Right.
Explain to me. But to everybody else, I mean, this is the key. Why they're advertising food stamps to everybody. This is domestication. A wild animal can get its own food. A wild human, a free human. But if you depend on the government for food during a collapse, they've got you. So, I mean, break that down.
Well, it's very simple. You can't do anything about the earthquakes and the storms and things that are happening as a result of the 2012 thing. You can't do anything about what's going to happen. I don't care who gets into office right now with this election. It doesn't matter. Neither one of them can do anything about, and we as individuals, Joe Lunchbucket out there can't do anything about what's going to happen with all of the goofiness that's going on with government and to take over the food. And we're going to talk about Michelle Obama and her interest in tracking all the food that we've got a little bit later on. Oh,
yeah, I meant to cover that yesterday. Will you guys reprint me that? Go ahead.
So anyway, you can't do anything about that. Now, Alex, you are a master at going in and finding all of the goofy stuff that's going on, all of the inappropriate stuff, and you expose it. And all of us, we've got people out there that would not miss one of your programs, that actually take notes when you bring up what's going on with Obama, when you bring up what's going on with the Chinese taking over our farmland, when you bring up what's going on with ethanol and the various things that we've talked about. But I got a question for you. You've got food in your garage under air conditioning. What can you do about Obama and the weather, and what can you do about all of the things that we've talked about? You can't do a stinking thing. And all of these people that are taking notes and are saying, my gosh, Alex really hit it today. What have you done for them? What can they do about it?
No, it's like
there's one thing they can do.
So it's like the Titanic is listing, the food is the lifeboats, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I agree. Listen, I promote my ideas of liberty and freedom and news and resistance to this tyranny, so as it gets worse and worse, people know who did it, so we have a chance as a remnant to rebuild things and dig out of this, because they've got the re-education camps and the Army manuals. It's all real. Everything, it's all coming true. I am so unpleased that we were proven right. But I agree with you. People need to have good friends and family and medical supplies and food and water filtration and firearms. And I've gotten out of the city. Listen, I lived in town. I like living in town. I like being able to drive a quarter mile to the movie theater or a quarter mile to the grocery store. Not now. I got to drive 10 minutes to get anywhere. And I'm not, and I went and read strategic relocation, and I found the one area in the hill country in Texas is probably one of the few safe areas, or safer. I mean, I've made preparation. I've put in the well. I'm putting in the solar power. I mean, because this is real, and I hope people will go to the one place to get their food. There may be other good places, but a lot of them are bad. eFoodsDirect.com or 800-409-5633. I don't care if you told me not to. I'm going to plug it. Tell them Alex Jones sent you. They got eFoodsDirect.com/Alex for some of their specials. 800-409-5633. Folks, you don't just need food for yourself. You need it for your family and your neighbors. Alex Jones here with a message that could revolutionize health in this country. Going back about a year and a half ago, I began to learn about the incredible health effects of Youngevity products. Aaron Dykes lost 92 pounds. We're going to show you some before and afters. Aaron, break down what happened, your story.
I've worked really hard with diet and exercise to try to lose weight, but I just didn't get the results. It just didn't happen. Then I saw what you were doing with InfoWarsTeam.com. I wasn't even trying to lose weight, but I got it because I wanted to feel better energy. I wanted that nutrition. Didn't even understand how that could kickstart my own weight loss goals, but the products did that for me. I found myself suddenly losing weight, more energetic, wanting to exercise, wanting to eat the right foods.
And they don't even advertise it as weight loss. I want to challenge our radio listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com, sign up as a distributor, and get wholesale pricing discounts at InfoWarsTeam.com. Steve Shank, who literally is the food expert. I've learned so much from this guy. And I've heard him say stuff on the radio before, and I'm like, really? And then it comes true. During the breaks, you got to hear these breaks. He's explaining why they want to track what's at the grocery store, what you buy, I mean, that's how crazy things have gotten, is that my kids are homeschooled, but twice a week they go to a homeschool academy, and the place is accredited, so there they got handouts that Michelle Obama loves them and is going to tell them what to eat. And I'm like, that's it, they're out of that academy. So now it's getting to the point where there's nowhere to run from these people, and you were explaining it all to me, but I hear the ads where they're like, you need to get on food stamps, and we don't have enough Hispanics on food stamps, and we need to get everybody on food stamps, and even if you have a job and a car, you need food stamps, and it's your money, you need it. It's clear domestication, and you pointed out Romney came out against it, and you just said that's political suicide.
Well, it very simply is, because what they're doing is they're getting all these people on the dole, and that's the way they're buying the presidency. And when Romney comes out and says we want to cut back the funding for food stamps, that's not the issue. What we need to do is put people in America in a situation where they don't need food stamps anymore because they can make enough money to buy the food. We need to keep the price of food down to the point where they can afford it.
Yeah, but they call this a recovery and say we left the recession 4 years ago.
What happens every time the government puts money into something? What happens?
Price goes up.
What happens when the government put money into health care? What happened there? It's already affecting. The food stamp push is already affecting.
Tell people what's happening to you buying food a year out.
Well, what we're having to do is we're competing with the Chinese, and we're competing with the Indians. We're competing with pretty much everybody out there, and it's boosting the food prices to the point where the demand is pushing raw materials, so that very literally we're having to compete with the countries that we've given all of our money to buy the food against.
Look at this headline. Michelle Obama hopes to take over grocery stores in the next 4 years. I mean, I'm entering the twilight zone here. They're arresting mothers nationwide for their kids in their backyard.
3 years ago, I got a call from southern Utah, a wife of a veterinarian. She had been informed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture that they were going to have to go out to all of the farms in their area and identify and tag every single living critter that was out there, okay? So that they can determine if a chicken gets sick and dies and somebody eats it.
Yeah, you've got to do all this bureaucracy, but then Big Pharma and Big Agri, they're exempt.
Well,
it's a total, look, he has the Rural Council that's under the Department of Homeland Security, and they've got spies. I've got family in the country. There's now spies going around asking questions about loyalty. Anybody that talks bad about Obama, they get government visits.
Yeah, well, the main thing that's happening there is everybody heard the news briefs that we went through about the cattle, where they're identified and they're being taxed because of cow flatulence.
Yes.
Okay, this carbon footprint type of stuff. Well, what's happening if they identify where the food comes from and what grocery store shipped it out? What do you think the objective is if they have a recall? Now, look at the number of recalls we've had on our food over the last year. It's been absolutely insane.
It's all about fear for a federal takeover, which they admit. Listen, we've got to end this hour. We're going to do a whole hour tonight on the Nightly News. The secrets of the food industry, the secrets of what's coming up. I mean, we've only covered about a third of this. Folks, if you do want to get storable food, I push you in the right direction. Great prices, great people, great quality, the biggest selection. They've got it all. Just go check it out, efoodsdirect.com/Alex. If you want to find the specials, or just give them a call, 800-409-5633. We need the Patriots, if things get really bad, to be prepared. And look which direction it's going in. And I hope everything turns out okay and you can just eat your food. Because, by the way, most companies count on you never eating it. They make it where it's tasty and good, I should add. So again, 800-409-5633. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.